Hey there, it's Drdreya. This is the 56th episode of Drdreya, Cybergal for Jesus, Words of Encouragement or WOE. The objective of this 56th video is to continue using the biblical book of Joshua as a means to navigating my present promised land and demonstrating how I am applying scripture to my life journey. We're nearing the end of the book of Joshua, and Joshua chapter 22 begins the closing of this phenomenal biblical book. In this chapter, Joshua sends home the tribes occupying the lands east of the Jordan, now that the children of Israel had taken full possession of their promised land west of the Jordan. By the way, shout out to Blessing Ophor's Jordans, which I reference again in WOE episode 58. Additionally, Joshua chapter 22 spotlights the son of the priest Eleazar, Phinehas, who is first introduced in Numbers chapter 25, demonstrating such a high degree of zeal for God that it is once again evident as he reappears in Joshua chapter 22, along with the delegation of 10 heads of families, who remind me of English Word and so-named Christian hip-hop artist, The Ambassador, whose song Up and Down is one of my favorites. Specifically, this WOE highlights several verses, including 1 through 5, 9 through 14, verse 16, verses 24 through 28, and 34, which state, verse 1, Then Joshua called together the people of the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and East Manasseh. He said to them, You have done everything that Moses, the Lord's servant, ordered you to do, and you have obeyed all my commands. All this time you have never once deserted the other Israelites. You have been careful to obey the commands of the Lord your God. Now, as he promised, the Lord your God has given the other Israelites peace. So go back home to the land which you claimed for your own, the land on the east side of the Jordan, that Moses, the Lord's servant, gave you. Make sure you obey the law that Moses commanded you. Love the Lord your God, do his will, obey his commandments, be faithful to him, and serve him with all your heart and soul. Verse 9, So the people of the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and East Manasseh went back home. They left the rest of the people of Israel at Shiloh in the land of Canaan and started out for their own land, the land of Gilead, which they had taken as the Lord had commanded them through Moses. When the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and East Manasseh arrived at Gilead, still on the west side of the Jordan, they built a large, impressive altar there by the river. Verse 11, The rest of the people of Israel were told, Listen, the people of the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and East Manasseh have built an altar at Gilead on our side of the Jordan. When the people of Israel heard this, the whole community came together at Shiloh to go to war against the eastern tribes. Verse 13, Then the people of Israel sent Phinehas, the son of Eleazar the priest, to the people of the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and East Manasseh in the land of Gilead. 10 leading men went with Phinehas, one from each of the western tribes, and each one the head of a family among the clans. Verse 16, And speaking for the whole community of the Lord, they said to them, Why have you done this evil thing against the God of Israel? You have rebelled against the Lord by building this altar for yourselves. You are no longer following him. Verse 24, No, we did it because we were afraid that in the future your descendants would say to ours, What do you have to do with the Lord, the God of Israel? Verse 25, He made the Jordan a boundary between us and you people of Reuben and Gad. You have nothing to do with the Lord. Then your descendants might make our descendants stop worshiping the Lord. So we built an altar, not to burn sacrifices or make offerings, verse 27, but instead as a sign for our people and yours, and for the generations after us, that we do indeed worship the Lord before his sacred tent, with our offerings to be burned, and with sacrifices and fellowship offerings. This was to keep your descendants from saying that ours have nothing to do with the Lord. It was our idea that if this should ever happen, our descendants could say, Look, our ancestors made an altar just like the Lord's altar. It was not for burning offerings or for sacrifice, but as a sign for our people and yours. Verse 34, The people of Reuben and Gad said, This altar is a witness to all of us that the Lord is God. And so they named it Witness. So, the words of encouragement and key points of this Navigating the Promised Land lesson include the following. The instructions noted in Joshua 22 verse 5 and in Deuteronomy chapter 4 verse 29, chapter 6 verses 5 through 6, chapter 10 verses 10 through 13, and chapters 11 verses 13 still applies, even for me as a modern day Christ follower. See Matthew chapter 22 verse 37, Mark chapter 12 verse 30, and Luke chapter 10 verse 27. Next, there is an effective way to approach conflict, and it begins with getting an understanding and ends with demonstrating love. Shout out to the Fire Bible regarding Joshua chapter 22 verse 12, which discusses how believers should approach conflict, including balancing truth and grace, justice and mercy, firmness and flexibility. In other words, we are obliged to boldly uphold and defend God's truth and holiness without compromise, while also acting in love toward those we must oppose or stand against. Check out Ephesians chapter 4, verses 15 through 16. Until next time, it's Dr. Drdreya encouraging us all to continue to reflect Jesus even in these cyber streets.